This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Brad Bush. North of Boston by Robert Frost. Part 3. After Apple Picking. My long, two-pointed ladder's sticking through a tree toward heaven still. And there's a barrel that I didn't fill beside it. And there may be 2 or 3 apples I didn't pick upon some bough. But I am done with apple picking now. Essence of winter sleep is on the night, the scent of apples. I am drowsing off. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight I got from looking through a pane of glass I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough and held against the world of hoary grass. It melted, and I let it fall and break. But I was well upon the way to sleep before it fell, and I could tell what from my dreaming was about to take. Magnified apples appear and disappear, stem end and blossom end, and every fleck of russet showing clear. My instep arch not only keeps the ache, it keeps the pressure of a ladder round. I feel the ladder sway as the boughs bend, and I keep hearing from the cellar bin the rumbling sound of load on load of apples coming in. For I have had too much of apple picking. I am overtired of the great harvest I myself desired. There were 10,000 fruit to touch, cherish in hand, lift down, and not let fall. For all that struck the earth, no matter if not bruised or spiked with stubble, went surely to the cider heap as if no worth. One can see what will trouble this sleep of mine, whatever sleep it is. Were he not gone, the woodchuck could say whether it's like his long sleep, as I describe its coming on, or just some human sleep. The Code. There were 3 in the meadow by the brook gathering up windrows, piling cocks of hay, with an eye always lifted towards the west, where an irregular, sun-bordered cloud darkly advanced with a perpetual dagger flickering across its bosom. Suddenly one helper, thrusting pitchfork in the ground, marched himself off the field and home. One stayed. The town-bred farmer failed to understand. "What is there wrong?" "Something you just now said." "What did I say?" "About our taking pains." "To cock the hay? Because it's going to shower? I said that more than half an hour ago. I said it to myself as much as you." "You didn't know, but James is one big fool. He thought you meant to find fault with his work. That's what the average farmer would have meant. James would take time, of course, to chew it over before he acted. He's just got round to act. He's a fool, if that's the way he takes me. Don't let it bother you. You've found out something. The hand that knows his business won't be told to do work better or faster, those 2 things. I'm as particular as anyone. Most likely I'd have served you just the same. But I know you don't understand our ways. You were just talking what was in your mind, what was in all our minds, and you weren't hinting. Tell you a story of what happened once. I was up here in Salem, at a man's named Sanders, with a gang of 4 or 5 doing the haying. No one liked the boss. He was one of the kind sports called a spider, all wiry arms and legs that spread out wavy from a humped body, nigh as big as a biscuit. But work, that man could work, especially if by doing so he could get more work out of his hired help. I'm not denying he was hard on himself. I couldn't find that he kept any hours, not for himself. Daylight and lantern light were one to him. I've heard him pounding in the barn all night. But what he liked was someone to encourage. Them that he couldn't lead, he'd get behind and drive. The way you can, you know, in mowing. Keep at their heels and threaten to mow their legs off. I'd seen about enough of his bullying tricks. We call that bullying. I'd been watching him. So when he paired off with me in the hayfield to load the load, thinks I, look out for trouble. I built the load and topped it off. Old Sanders combed it down with a rake and says, "Okay." Everything went well till we reached the barn with a big catch to empty in the bay. You understand that meant the easy job for the man up on top of throwing down the hay and rolling it off wholesale. Where on a mow, it would have been slow lifting. You wouldn't think a fella'd need much urging under these circumstances, would you now? But the old fool seizes his fork in both hands, and looking up bewhiskered out of the pit, shouts like an army captain, "Let her come!" Thinks I, do you mean it? "What was that you said?" I asked out loud, so there'd be no mistake. "Did you say let her come?" "Yes, let her come." He said it over, but he said it softer. Never you say a thing like that to a man. Not if he values what he is. God, I'd as soon murdered him as left out his middle name. I'd built the load and knew right where to find it. 2 or 3 forkfuls I picked up lightly round for like meditating, and then I just dug in and dumped the rackful on him in 10 lots. I looked over the side once in the dust and caught sight of him treading water like, keeping his head above. "Damn ye," I says, "that gets ye." He squeaked like a squeezed rat. That was the last I saw or heard of him. I cleaned the rack and drove out to cool off. As I sat mopping hayseed from my neck and sort of waiting to be asked about it, one of the boys sings out, "Where's the old man?" "I left him in the barn under the hay. If you want him, you can go dig him out." They realized from the way I swabbed my neck more than was needed something must be up. They headed for the barn. I stayed where I was. They told me afterward. First they forked hay, a lot of it, out into the barn floor. Nothing. They listened for him, not a rustle. I guess they thought I'd spiked him in the temple before I buried him, or I couldn't have managed. They excavated more. "Go keep his wife out of the barn." Someone looked in a window and cursed me if he wasn't in the kitchen, slumped way down in a chair with both his feet stuck in the oven, the hottest day of the summer. He looked so clean disgusted from behind there was no one that dared to stir him up, or let him know that he was being looked at. Apparently I hadn't buried him. I may have knocked him down. But my just trying to bury him had hurt his dignity. He'd gone to the house so's not to meet me. He kept away from us all afternoon. We tended his hay. We saw him out after a while picking peas in his garden. He couldn't keep away from doing something. Weren't you relieved to find he wasn't dead? No, and yet I don't know. It's hard to say. I went about to kill him fair enough. You took an awkward way. Did he discharge you? Discharge me? No, he knew I did just right. The generations of men. A governor, it was proclaimed this time, when all who would come seeking in New Hampshire ancestral memories might come together. And those of name Stark gathered in Bow, a rock-strewn town where farming has fallen off and sproutlands flourish where the axe has gone. Someone had literally run to earth in an old cellar hole in a by-road the origin of all the family there. Thence they were sprung, so numerous a tribe, that now not all the houses left in town made shift to shelter them without the help of here and there a tent in grove and orchard. They were at Bow, but that was not enough. Nothing would do, but they must fix a day to stand together on the crater's verge that turned them on the world and try to fathom the past and get some strangeness out of it. But rain spoiled all. The day began uncertain, with clouds low trailing and moments of rain that misted. The young folk held some hope out to each other till well toward noon, when the storm settled down with a swish in the grass. "What if the others are there?" they said. "It isn't going to rain." Only one, from a farm not far away, strode thither, not expecting he would find anyone else, but out of idleness. One and one other, yes, for there were 2. The second round the curving hillside road was a girl, and she halted some way off to reconnoiter, and then made up her mind at least to pass by and see who he was, and perhaps hear some word about the weather. This was some start she didn't know. He nodded. "No feet today," he said. It looks that way." She swept the heavens